And we are back! Stage 4 of the Russian Drift Series Grand Prix was unsurprisingly full of surprises, and for the first time this year and hopefully the last, the weather was a significant factor. Even though it did mostly affect the tandem drifting, some interesting things happened during qualifying as well. This event took place in Mychkovo near Moscow, and let's get into it. "27 drivers entered the race as part of the main championship, joined by 4 juniors. And throughout practice, many of them were experiencing technical issues, as this track is hard on the cars. Also, there were a few crashes, but by Saturday all of those cars were patched up and ready for qualifying. Though Artyom Leitis came here with a new car, while Arkady Tsargratsev brought his old one. On the surface, the assignment appeared to be the same as last year's, with the same clips and locations of the start and finish lines, but you'll see shortly. Here's the full assignment, and now let's cover qualifying. Anyway, the assignments seem to have been carried over unchanged, but because of stricter demands towards angle and the addition of extra penalties for line, there were quite a few surprises. To give you an idea, last year 22 drivers scored 90 or more on this track. This year it was just 9. That being said, Group 1, consisting of Andrei Stepov, Ilya and Vladislav Popov, Denis Miguel, Ruslan Arefiev, Pyotr Borodin and Timofey Dobrovolsky did pretty well with the qualifying. Scores of 90 plus were posted by Borodin, Vladislav Popov and Dobrovolsky, with Borodin and Dobrovolsky both scoring 91 and 92.5, and Vlad Popov 91 for his first run. In the meantime, Ilya's car was acting up, meaning he's moving to the health group, as is Ruslan Arefiev for the very same reason. Group 2, Artur Zelyony, Ivan Pelman, Anton Kozlov, Artyom Leitis, Dmitry Sherbina, Georgy Chivchan, and Roman Tividar. Amazingly enough, Chivchan and Tividar were not among those who scored 90 plus, who did make it into the club were Pelman and Kozlov, with Anton temporarily climbing to the top of the scoreboard with his 96.5 point second attempt, and not a single zero. A new entry in the Junior League, with Daniel Arefiev, Stepan Popov, and Arseny Tsargratsev being joined by Luka Miguel. And here we had a couple of zeros for Popov and Miguel's first attempts, though they did get points for their second runs. Tsargratsev did the best, and props to Arefiev for driving on 3 wheels during his first attempt and not getting a zero. Well done. Here we see Arseny's best run that earned him 94 points, if only it weren't for Touch and Go 3. Group 3, Anton Kliemko, Sergei Kuznetsov, Tommy Kiley, Stanislav Antropov, Anatoly Sherbak, Ilya Fyodorov, Dmitry Putilin. And here it was quite an unpleasant surprise to see Tommy Kiley get a zero for his first attempt due to issues with his car, and a mere 89 points for his second run. Scores of 90 plus were posted by Fyodorov and Kuznetsov, but if Ilya barely got there with his 90.5, then Sergei is at the top of the qualifying board with his score of 97. And the last of the primary groups, Arkady Tsargratsev, Damir Idiatulin, Mikhail Davidans, Danil Vorbyev, Grigory Gusiev, and Anton Dmitrienko. Once again, among drivers who scored 90 plus, we don't see Tsargratsev, with him in his backup car or Idiatulin, while Gusiev and Davidans got there, 95 and 94.5 respectively. Interesting. Now we cover the health group, comprised of just Ilya Popov and Ruslan Arefiev, who earned positive scores, although they weren't particularly high, 83 and 57.5 respectively. Best in qualifying honors go to Arseny Tsargratsev and Sergei Kuznetsov. I still don't get why they removed so many points for my second run. There was that slightly incremental transition after the Manji. They told me I got 96 points. For the first run, I didn't expect to get such a high score. I got a lot for the first one and not a lot for the second one. The fact that I was actually paying attention during the briefing might have helped me. They did introduce angle limits in certain areas, and because of that, we had to keep them in mind, and be especially careful about them because past techniques aren't really gonna work. If on Saturday we got lucky with the weather and it only started raining after qualifying, on Sunday there was a downpour. Luckily the drivers got some wet practice the evening before. The competition was kicked off by the juniors, who were going all against all while trying to earn points. 3 for a win, 1 each for an OMT, and 0 for a loss. For the first heat, Arsenij Tsarogratsev and Luka Miguel got 3 out of 4 possible zeros. With Tsarogratsev winning as soon as Miguel got his second 0 win in the lead position, as they couldn't continue from there, even though Arsenij tried to. I made some mistakes, because it was a mixed surface. After the Manji, during the warm-up it was wet, but during the actual battle I did not expect the pavement there to be dry, and I didn't make my steering inputs in time after the dry spot. He damaged my wheel. I mean, obviously it was my fault. But during the second run he did a 360. He didn't do it on purpose, but he slipped. Between Stepan Popov and Daniil Arefyev there was just 1-0, or Arefyev's chase run, which decided the outcome. Now we get to the grown-ups. Artur Zelyony was doing a great job controlling his flanker in these weather conditions, beating Ilya Popov in the process. Both of their lead runs were pretty solid, though Artur did a slightly better job. 97 versus Ilya's 93, and he was considerably better while following. Dmitry Putilin had a great start against Vladislav Popov, but him spinning out with no provocation from his opponent quickly took the wind out of his sails. It was as if his car found a patch of grip and darted in a completely different direction than he expected. Both contenders got a good second round in, but the outcome here is clear. Ilya Fyodorov and Denis Miguel. Fyodorov was looking pretty good, but Miguel overall did a better job, aside from when he almost nullified his efforts while transitioning. Denis earned 91 points for his lead run versus Ilya's 85.5, 23 and 19 points for line respectively. That combined with a decent chase run ensured further passage for Fresh Racing's captain. Roman Tividar versus Anton Kliemko. 2 very solid lead runs, but there is something important to note here. Yes, Anton did miss touch and goes 4/2 and 4/3, earned just 25 points for line while Roman received the full 30, but if we look at other criteria, Tividar got 30 and 33 points for a total of 93, while Kliemko earned 34 and 35 for a total of 94. And so they're about the same, despite the points lost for line. Following Tividar did well, but Kliemko was even better, especially in the valuable first sector. Andrei Ostapov was not able to stop Tommy Kiley, who was better both in the lead, given equal line points and 94 versus 90.5 overall, and in the chase.
Really enjoyed my first battle with Ostapov because it was completely milling out of the heavens, torrential rain, and I didn't know how I pulled it off, but in the chase there was quite a few blind transitions and there was just water being thrown at the windshield in the chase, and the first 2 transitions were completely blind, just off muscle memory. We were trying to do our best and we kept it clean.
In the heat between Damir Idiatulin and Anton Dmitrienko, both runs were decided by the final meters leading up to the finish. 2 collisions, both times Dmitrienko was at fault. First, he got his positioning wrong and was carrying too much pace. Then he was late to transition and not on throttle while his opponent was doing everything as instructed. A similar situation occurred between Piotr Bordin and Stanislav Antropov, albeit just once. Stas fell far behind, attempting to catch up the entire time, and had a mishap near the end. Piotr Bordin completes his chase run and progresses to the top 16. Danila Vorobyov and Anatoly Sherbak. Good performances overall, though Danila was slightly better in the lead, 93.5 versus 88, and more consistent in the chase, at the very least in the valuable first sector. A sitcom titled Artyom Leitis vs. Georgy Chivchyan, where in the logline you could have written both Artyom and Georgy were doing their best to not let their opponent lose, and at some point Gocha succeeded. Here's a quick summary of all three battles. Heat number 1. One of the judges hit Georgy with a 0 for his transition at touch and go 5, the other two deemed it a serious mistake. It is worth noting that these runs were judged mostly visually, as the drift dynamics system in Chivchyan's car wasn't always working, even fitting new sensors didn't help. Anyway, the other two judges equated Gocha's serious mistake to a serious mistake made by Leitis in the first transition. Also, in their opinion, Artyom was having trouble maintaining pace throughout all three battles. Otherwise, they were similar, hence the OM team. Heat number 2. Gocha experiencing the same issues, this time in the first transition, but now all three judges hit him with a 0. Then they disagreed as to who was at fault for him spinning out during round 2. First, Artyom grazes Georgy before touch and go 3, then Chivchyan shoots through the no-go, pulls his handbrake, sheds speed by sliding without braking but not on throttle either, which you're not allowed to do there, and at that moment Leitis slams into him. One of the judges posited that enough time had gone by for him to stabilize, that it was Gocha's own fault, while the other two thought there wasn't enough time, and that the tap before touch and go 3 must be considered. If Artyom had not hit Gocha right before touch and go 3, he would have won. As it were another 0 for chasing, judging lead runs was not possible, hence another OM team. Now we get to the final episode. Gocha once again having trouble in the transitions, once again one of the judges gives him a 0, and once again the other two do not. As for Leitis, once again his speed was low, which was holding Georgy back, and he was far behind while following. That being said, Chivchyan attempted to run away in the first curve, with his angle reducing to narrow. His attempt was successful, but this didn't do him any favors in terms of the judging. But then Artyom didn't have to trail so far behind. Anyway, the other two judges gave Leitis the win by a narrow margin, and even if they'd have ruled for an OMT, Artyom would have won anyway, because he was higher in qualifying. It's been a while since we've seen such disastrous performances from both drivers at once. The heat between Arkady Tsarogratsev and Dmitry Sherbina had a way less ambiguous outcome. Once again, the final meters before the line, Sherbina slams into Tsarogratsev and spins out. It should be obvious why Dmitry was deemed to be at fault. Arkady executes a decent chase run and becomes the penultimate contender to transition to the top 16. No ambiguity with the last pair either. Timofey Dobrovolsky was better than Ruslan Arefyev in the lead, 22 versus 15 line points, and he was cleaner following. And let's not forget about the juniors, Daniel Arefyev and Luka Miguel. Neither got a 0, well done. Daniel scored 15 line points, Luka first fell behind then caught up, and for the entire second half of the course he was close. After changing positions, Miguel goes into hyperdrive at the start and flies away from Arefyev, who obviously was not expecting that and was unable to catch up. From there, Luka made a bunch of mistakes, especially in the curve with the fours, leaving him with just 7 line points, but he wasn't hampering his opponent, and in the first curve Luka's pace was on point. Daniel could not read his opponent's speed and fell way behind, without even trying to catch up, let alone pressure him. Arsenij Tsargradzev versus Stepan Popov. If only Stepan hadn't gotten a 0 for his unchaseable lead run, things could have gone differently, but 2 productive chase runs and just 1 lead run, there couldn't have been any other outcome. The top 16 stage continued under torrential rain. The first to go out under it were Sergei Kuznetsov and Artur Zelyony, with Kuznetsov doing a better job leading, 96 versus 88 points, and following a bit more closely. What's interesting about the next heat is that it was being observed by Mr. Trump himself, though the runs themselves were full of suffering. Both Denis Miguel and Vladislav Popov were having to persevere, which Denis did a better job with, as he was much closer following than Vlad, who was constantly holding his opponent back, and he just walked away while leading. Lead run scores were pretty close though. Anton Kliemko was also getting held back by the leader when battling with Mikhail Davidians. On top of that, Mikhail made a mistake in the last transition, with his angle dropping all the way down to 5 degrees. During round 2, Davidians lost through the entire first curve, but then amazingly enough, he caught up with his swift opponent, sticking close the rest of the way. Regardless, all things considered, Kliemko was the obvious winner. Despite the weather conditions, we saw a great heat between Ivan Palman and Tommy Kiley. A couple of terrific 97-point lead runs, but Kiley was clearly better while following, earning passage to the top 8. It is such a shame that Anton Kozlov's fantastic run against Damir Idiatulin ended with a tap and the former spinning out at the finish. Damir was simply too aggressive, putting maximum pressure on his opponent, and in these conditions even a small mistake can become critical, which is exactly what happened. Anton got through his chase run, he wasn't overly aggressive, but not exactly relaxed either, and earned a spot in the top 8. Pyotr Borodin and Danila Vorobyev both got 0s for their chase runs. Vorobyev straightened out, while Borodin blocked his opponent's transition, which is where the round ended. 2 zeros for chasing, 1 lead run, which is why the judges sent this pair to an OMT. Grigory Gusiev already beat Artyom Leitis in the first round, when Leitis fell behind in the main curve and was unable to catch up, even though Goricha wasn't running away, scoring 85 for his lead run. Artyom responded with a lead run netting an identical score of 85, though he was slower. Grigory was sticking closer the entire way, so it's clear who won here. Now, looking at the next heat between Timofey Dobrovolsky and Arkady Tsarogratsev, some might assume this would have gone to an OM team, as their performances seemed similar enough, but actually this was a win for Tsarogratsev. As for why, the scores tell most of the story, with Tsarogratsev earning 97.5 and Dobrovolsky 82, and both doing well with line. Also, Tsarogratsev was closer most of the way, except for the Manji. As for Timofey, the judges said they were surprised that Leitis and Dobrovolsky didn't stall in the bend with the fours and the Manji. That's how slow they were going. Granted, there were no speed restrictions, but that doesn't mean you should drive slower than a pedestrian. Lead and chase runs considered, overall Tsarogratsev had the upper hand. Bordin and Vorobyev weren't slapped with zeros during their re-examination, though they did get close, both while following. Danila did so twice, coming out of transitions at an angle of 5 degrees, but Lukoil's driver was still tight in the chase. Forward's driver suffered some understeer, he was having trouble, but in sectors 2 and 3, Bordin was somewhat further behind. Given similar lead runs, Vorobyev has the upper hand. And the battle between juniors Stepan Popov and Luka Miguel ended in victory for Popov. Luka succumbed to the classic chaser's mistake of jumping the start, which allowed Stepan to catch him by surprise, though he then made up for his mistake. And after the first transition, this turned out to be a pretty good run, with Popov even earning 25 line points. In response, Miguel tried to do what he pulled off with Arefiev, as in run away while constantly overspeeding and going off course, but this time he failed. Popov managed to stick close, and you have 5 line points for 1 wheel off course 3 times and 2 wheels twice, versus 25, you get the picture. The next stage was kicked off with some infighting. Sergei Kuznetsov and Denis Miguel, and a confident win for Kuznetsov, 90 versus 84 for lead runs, and Sergei was closer following, despite some serious correction by Denis which caused him problems. Tommy Kiley just as handily defeated Anton Kliemko, 97 points versus 88 for lead runs, and he was closer following. The rain had stopped, the track had begun to dry, and the conditions were turning into the worst you can imagine. Wet, dry, unfathomable. Regardless, Anton Kozlov was able to fairly easily defeat Danila Vorobyev. Aside from having to call for a 5-minute timeout to swap tires, Vorobyev once again was having trouble with one of the transitions while following, and he wasn't quite as good in the lead. We had a great heat with Dan Vorobyev. He stuck close to me, I stuck close to him. Also, both of our lead runs were pretty good. This had to have been the best run. To a significant extent, the heat between Grigory Gusiev and Arkady Tsarogratsev was decided when Griha made a tactical mistake in the chase. When trying to cling to his opponent, he found himself on a wet patch of pavement. As a result, Tsarogratsev pulled away, being on the dry portion. Also, his lead run was a tad worse, 84 versus 91. In the final heat between the juniors, given such conditions, somebody was bound to get a zero. Daniel Arefiev got one good save, but right after, when more trouble arose, he fell short. Arseny Tsarogratsev managed to score points, claiming his last win of the day, and yet another overall victory in these training exercises. The pavement continued to dry out, creating more and more issues for the drivers, which didn't keep Tommy Kiley from beating his teammate Sergei Kuznetsov. Both made their fair share of mistakes while following. Their lead runs were similar, though Kuznetsov's mistakes were more severe, hence he will contend for third place, while Kiley battles for the win.
Yeah, a small bit. It was starting to dry up for us as well, so we just did what we could. I knew it was going to be tough for both of us, and we have the same car more or less, so...
It was a horrible run. On my part, and his, I guess, as well. You can say that, because it was a very inconsistent surface. It was very difficult to drive on. Honestly, we barely got through. But his barely was slightly better than my barely. Anton Kozlov and Arkady Tsarogratsev were not able to immediately settle which of them would land a spot in the finals, or round one when simply watching the broadcast. 28 line points for Anton, 25 for Arkady, he missed a few of the fours, so a win for Kozlov then? But if you closely examine the data, Anton, while leading, was severely penalized for angle and style in the first sector. Angle was too narrow, he attempted to run away, with Arkady getting blown off course in his wake, which is why this valuable sector cannot be judged in his favor. Otherwise, Tsarogratsev did better with transitions, Kozlov in the curves, hence an OMT. Which ended in a way more confident win for Anton. 92.5 versus 72.5 for lead runs. Arkady was seemingly trying to drive faster than his car was capable of, which led to him going off course and making other mistakes. Add decent chasing from both of them and you have a very clear outcome. I was preparing to go 100%. I have a lot of respect for Arkady and his team. Those guys know how to make a really fast car. Arkady is a very fast driver, but it's worth noting that he wasn't in his usual car, but he drove it as if it was his car. He was fast and precise, mostly without mistakes, but against me he made a few mistakes. I think he's an amazing driver. He's a true professional. So the first round went... From behind the wheel and watching the broadcast, I felt as if I had the upper hand, but then we later discussed this run with the judges, and they criticized me for my lead run, said my angle was too narrow in the first curve. As for chase runs, in some spots Arkady was better, in others I was, which is why they ruled for an OMT. From the very beginning, my goal was simply to survive. Contending for third place, we have Sergei Kuznetsov and Arkady Tsarogratsev. The track kept drying out, making it almost impossible to properly drive. Kuznetsov missed a good 3 clips, scoring just 18 points for line. Arkady also could have done better. He went off course 3 times and missed touch-and-go tame, earning 20 points. And he did worse with style and angle. For example, a tap that looked like it was Kuznetsov's fault was actually caused by Tsarogratsev correcting a losing angle, with the judges deciding that this caused significant issues for the chaser. Kuznetsov takes the win. The final race took place in such conditions that you couldn't help but remember the early days of drifting in Russia, when you could win by simply not spinning out. Patches of the track had dried out, but there was still a huge puddle before the main curve with the fours, which drivers had to drive into at full speed. There was no other way to navigate that scored section. But when you are going full speed, you aquaplane and go off. There was no other way. Both Tommy Kiley and Anton Kozlov confirmed this during their recon runs. But Anton Kozlov, who was higher in qualifying, made a brilliant move. He was the first driver throughout this event who decided to start in the chase position. Kiley, as expected, slipped and went off, scoring 0 points. After that, most of the spectators must have been expecting another 0, and an OMT ruling. However, Anton, who's a great analyst, was able to find the right approach after sailing off once himself and watching Tommy do so twice, and it worked. On top of that, he got hit by Tommy, who had slipped once again, and there you go. Avoid spinning out to win is a very fitting phrase given the context. Congratulations to the winner.
Yeah, we tried to work with the spotter and learn the track as much as we could, but in these conditions, especially when it gets so dry in the first 2 corners, it becomes very hard to manage it because there's such grip and momentum leading into the 3rd corner. We tried our best, but we just had too much speed coming in and the car over-rotated on me. So, yeah, there's nothing I could do. I gave it my best, and yeah, congrats to Anton on his win.
Here's what we needed to do. The first 2 bends were dry, so was the second transition, but we were transitioning straight into a puddle. Or the first part of the course we were going like during qualifying, and the second part like we would in tandem. So we were bringing all of that speed into the wet section, and it was literally impossible to slow down. I realized that during the warm-up, and when Thomas was leading, he had all 4 wheels go off. My objective in the lead was simply to not go off course, and so after the transition I put extra effort into stabilizing the car to shed all of that excess speed I was carrying. And then I'd open up, so Thomas gave me a slight nudge, but I stayed on course. The judges took some time to figure out whether it was an unchaseable run, because it was really hard to stick the line, and I had to shed a lot of speed. Thankfully, they deemed it a chaseable run. Also, Thomas was trying to reel me in, and so he did give me a tap. But yeah, that's how I progressed. Well, I mean, won. Alright, so Tommy Kiley would appear to be pretty much the main contender for the title. Congrats to him on that, though otherwise, it's still very much a toss-up. Coming up, we have Stage 5 on the 1st and 2nd of August in Krasnoyarsk, and from there, the final event is on the horizon, on August 29th and 30th at the Moscow Raceway. Make sure to get tickets for RDS GP and open events on tickets.vdrifte.ru, follow RDS on social media, and watch the live broadcasts on RDS TV. With that, it's time to wrap this video up. Now we word from our finalists. Bye-bye. I enjoyed it, everything was great. The weather forecast said that during practice days there would be rain, but it didn't rain. Only during the tandem practice. But I had enough time to adapt and get some good runs in the rain. It's a very smart track. Entry is a bit tricky. It's a challenging racetrack, especially in mixed conditions. I mean, you saw the final battle. It's really hard. It's my favorite track. I'm glad that overall things went just as I intended, except for maybe my top 4 battle with Tommy, but it was on a difficult surface. Also, I'd barely gotten any practice in. That was something I was very worried about during qualifying, how I'd get a decent score, but things went somewhat better than I expected.
Yeah, it went pretty good from start to finish. We had dry practice for 2 days, and I was really getting the feel for the car in the dry. I was getting the setup working, everything good. We had a clutch failure and broken drivetrain, so the team were on it, no problem at all to them. They had it fixed pretty quick, it was no problem, but yeah, things were going good until the main event, and it started to rain all day long. Heavy rain, thunderstorms, everything, every sort of a curveball was thrown at us. So yeah, it was a very good result for us to make it to the top 4 and finish in the 2nd place. There was a few nerve-wracking battles because of the conditions, especially after the top 8. There was a dry line on the 2nd last corner and also the last corner, so it was anyone's game, but it was kind of a game of mistakes from start to finish, I think, after that. And luckily, yeah, we made it to the podium, so very happy. Yeah, we have this in Ireland pretty regularly, especially in the winter when we do some training. So the wet conditions are no problem, but when it starts to get patchy, especially on a track where there's different surfaces, it becomes very difficult and almost impossible to predict what the car is going to do. And we're keeping an eye on the surface as much as we can, but with a wet setup in the car, it dried up massively in the first 2 corners. It was like, it was driving in the rain, driving in the dry in the 1 lap. It was just very hard to predict. So
it didn't feel like it was my birthday. The competition was all that was on my mind. I was totally locked in. We were setting up the cars. We wanted to make sure we qualify well, and overall we did. Too bad we were half a point short of being on top. Sergei Kuznetsov had the edge, but the actual competition went the way it did, and here I am sitting and talking about it. We didn't do any serious prep for the wet surface. All we did was slightly adjust the wheel alignment. Also, we softened up the suspension. Otherwise, we didn't make any significant changes. But for the mixed conditions, we brought the power up even higher than for dry pavement, so that when I reach a dry patch, the car would be able to easily light the tires up and follow the correct line. And that's about it. The key components were your mindset, avoiding mistakes. To win a drifting competition, you just have to make less mistakes than others. Also stick close, and that's about it. And today things worked out. It's a fairly small track, interesting initiation, and from there, it's not particularly technical, but I feel as if, perhaps in my new car, I'll feel differently about it. Preparation as usual, I'm in the sim, gym, nutrition, and all of that. Most importantly, I try to keep my mind off of drifting. Although every day I'm in the sim, most importantly, you need to keep your chin up. I really love Krasnoyarsk. We made a copy of their track in Ulyanovsk. We used it for a winter drifting series. I did a lot of driving there. I have a good understanding of that track, and so over there I pretty much feel at home. So yeah, I love Krasnoyarsk, I'm looking forward to it, and see you there.